Hello and welcome to the how-to series on the create band features in SatView. This is one of a series of how-tos on creating bands. With me I've got Luke and I'm Eric, and I think we should just get started. We've loaded a network, a small demo network, and now Luke will start hitting the create band feature, and we'll see the create bands UI appears. It might be a bit overwhelming in the beginning, which is why we have this session. So to the left we have got band types. We can see we can choose between single attribute differences or stacked, and there's a load data bundles button, and below you can see what attributes are already selected, and in this one we have got nothing selected at this point. There's a little arrow at the top there that we can hide this one, so if you've got a small screen you can still see what you have. And we're now looking at the attribute configuration panel and the classification panel here. At the top we can see the network and the attribute, and there's room for some statistics. Because we haven't selected anything, there's nothing now. If we go down, we can see there's the bandwidth scaling tab, and here we can set the size of the bands depending on what attribute we're showing and how many units we will find there. This is really useful, and you'll see why when we get some data selected. Below we have some advanced options, like you can choose the minimum bandwidth so that the zeros do still appear, for example. They don't completely disappear. You can choose maximum band. So say if once a value is greater than 80%, it's the maximum width. You don't want to clutter your plot, and there's a fixed band, and there's an offset as well. Now if we go to the definition query, that is the query that defines what data you're going to do bands on, and here we got two filters. One is the absolute numbers filter. We can say that the minimum value you want to show is maybe 10, and the maximum volume you want to see is 1,000, and then that means you're just making bands on things that are between those two. You can have either the minimum or the maximum, or both, or none selected. And the relative values is for differences only. We get back to that later. Now if you untick those two, look, the min and max, and you might also untick the absolute numbers, that's fine. So now we can go into labels, and much similar to the definition query, you can define what labels you want to see. You can round them to the nearest 1 or 2 or 10 or anything really, 0.1, what fits your attribute. You can also choose the lowest and the highest values to be shown. Sometimes lower values are more interesting than higher values, so you got those options. Then we can go into the limit data set, which basically allow you to do it either on the full network, which can take a while if you got a big network, so we're probably more advisable to do it on the links just in the visible area, if you choose the area that you're interested in. You can also do it just on selected links. There's a sample later that will do some of that. You can also choose to do the bandwidth by link types, and here we've got simulation links and simulation turns switched on. Probably quite often you might not want to have the turns because it's too much detail for your map, but it all depends on what you're showing really. The last thing on this is a legend, and on this legend tab you can show you can put a title in for your legend, and it will be plotted on the map. It will help you do the desktop publishing. Okay, if we quickly look to the right, we see the classification, and look, if you extend say to 6, then you can see it automatically expands right up to 10. So you can see it automatically expands. When you get up to 10, the color options disappear, and that's probably because, according to our color expert, you're actually not able to see the difference between them anymore. So if you do go back down to to 5. That would be nice. Okay, you also got the options of sequential values, which is like things that just increase or decrease. We can do a single hue or multi-hue. As a default, you got the both of them in the. If you go to the multi-hue, you can see what multi-hue means. I don't need to then talk about it. But that's like a single color or two different colors mixed. Okay, we can go to the diverging, and that's used for values that are negative, and when you have negative and positive values mixed, you can go for that, and that will mean that you should try and get the get a 0 in the middle probably, or the neutral values in the middle. And yeah, if you go up there and change it to the last one, diverging, to qualitative, then qualitative, if you select one of those, that is where they each are different. So it could be like road type. It's not a value that increases or decreases, and it's not something that differs to either side of something. So it's a qualitative value. Okay, I think we're now familiar enough with the UI, so we can go back and expand the data selection. So we're going to do single attributes here, and we're going to load some attributes. So if you click load attributes, look, you can go for the quick results, the next one down, yeah, and just select all of those, and we can just check that all values are there, and they are except for the clicks. So just accept it, Luke, and we'll get on with our life here. Okay, so now how would you select these attributes, Luke?
So we can see that we've loaded a selection of attributes. To get these attributes to be in the network one that we see here, we can either choose to double click, or we can drag it to the appropriate position. By doing so, we can see that the statistics section is now populated. So we get the maximum value that occurs, an average, and a minimum value.
Yeah, thank you. So we can just look at these statistics here, and we can see that the average changes with the selected links, and the minimum also changes, and that is of course because we haven't chosen our turns, and there's also a number of other links that are not there. The logic in that the average is higher seems to be correct, so we're going to trust these numbers now and just move on. And if you don't understand them, don't worry, it's not that important. The most important thing is here in the bandwidth scaling, where you can see that if we look at the actual width in meters, then we can actually see that it's 58 meters is the average value width, and the maximum width is 154 meters. We could click on the target width in meters, and when you tick that, it comes up and says if you want the average to be 20 meters, then you need 1 meter on the ground to be 29 units. So we untick the target again, and then we go up and we can set it to 30 meters on the ground. That's a nicer number, and just gives a better legend. Okay, if we click OK, create bands here at the bottom, then we should be ready to see some bands coming up. And what do you think, Luke?
We can instantly see that we've chosen qualitative band types, so the colours don't give us a clear picture of what are the big and the small numbers. We can see that the labels have got all the decimal places to give you the full extent of the detail. So it's clear that we've got some work to do with these labels to make them clearer and more useful to us as an output.
Yeah, I think this is a redo. So let's go back to just click the create bands again. You get the same UI up as you had before with all your selections nearly. We'll come back to that. Some of them will be lost, but that's the colors really. If you spend a lot of time fiddling about with the colors, then you're at risk. So don't do that. But let's select a sensible color scheme. I like the sequential, and I like blue, so just give me some blue. No, that's purple. Yeah, that's better. Okay, and I think we should have maybe 6 user classes so that we could have. Yeah, that's nice. I'll accept that. And then you can go into the labels, and you can say round to nearest. Should we round to nearest 10 or nearest 50, or what do you like to do, Luke?
I personally always choose to the nearest one at least to ensure that we don't have all the decimal places displayed on the map. And if you're obviously not too interested in the detail, obviously the exact numbers down to the SATURN assignment, you could do, for example, round to the nearest 10 to make it a bit more neat.
Yeah, and also with the labels, sometimes you don't really want to see the smallest numbers because they just clutter the plot. So if we go in and click lowest value to be shown, and then say 100, and that should declutter the plot a little bit. Okay, I think we are ready now to probably see if this gives us a better plot. So we just click create again, and I think it does. Maybe you want to go and switch off some of the layers. I know Luke loves to switch off all the layers nearly, except for just the links. So he should be allowed to do that. It's about making the map that you're making tell the story that you want to tell. And if having less detail helps you doing that, then by all means do so. Okay, what do we see here? We see we got all these nice and straight bands. I think I'm wondering if there's anything else we should do. If you think the bands are not big enough, then you can go in and you can change the scaling. So if you go into that and do you get the legend there. You can say you want it to be 40 meters instead, and then that looks nice. It does some rounding itself. I think this is a really nice and quick way to do this, rather than having to sit and do the calculations yourself. What we see is if we now click on the create bands again, you can see the scale changes. If you zoom in or out, what do we see that happens? You can see the legend changes its size because the bands are true to the ground. So it's now true to scale.